So in tonight's video, I wanted to put head to head two of my favourite 18-inch gaming laptops for this year. The Alienware M18 versus the Razer Blade 18. Now 18-inch is a new and massive size for gaming laptops this year, and I've really enjoyed my time with both of these gaming laptops. These are some of the most immersive desktop replacement laptops you can possibly buy, and they are amazing for gaming on the actual laptop screens themselves. I find with an 18-inch panel, I don't need an external display. So if you want to choose an 18-inch gaming laptop, these are two of the most premium gaming laptops that are available. And this Razer Blade 18 has an eye-watering price tag, so hopefully in tonight's video we're going to show you the differences between these two so that you can decide whether you want to save some money with the Alienware M18 or really put your hand deep in the pocket for that Blade 18. So just before we start delving fully into how these compare, I've tried to get them as close as possible in the specs department. Both of these have the i9 13th gen Intel processor. They've both got a 4080 graphics cards. We've both got a 2560 by 1600 display, albeit with different brightness and response times, which we will talk about in a little while. And we've chosen 32GB and 1TB on each of these machines. Now, if you buy these at retail price from either Dell or Razer, you're talking about £3,800 in the UK for the Blade 18 or £2,800 for the Alienware M18. Now that's £1,000 difference in the UK between these two, and that's not even taking into consideration that you can usually get discount codes for a Dell. So does that Blade 18 have extra features worthy of £1,000? Let's start taking a look around these to find out. So first things first, let's take a look around the chassis, and we're going to take a look at both the build quality and the size. Now the Razer Blades have always prided themselves on making very compact gaming laptops, and sometimes at the expense of performance. But this year, with the Blade 16 and Blade 18, Razer have improved the performance by making these laptops slightly thicker. And straight away you can see when you're putting it up against the Alienware M18, the height of the laptops, the Blade 18 is slightly thinner than this massive Alienware M18, but there's not a lot in it, especially at the front end where they're almost touching. The rear end, obviously with the humped shape of this Alienware M18, it does get a fair bit thicker. But you will notice the massive difference in size between these two is the width and the depth, especially because on the Alienware M18, where it pumps all the heat out of the back, you have this big fat grille, and the grille does make a great difference pumping that heat out rather than through the screen of the Razer Blade 18 at the expense of size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on top of it so you can see how much difference there is between these two. So on the width, we're literally talking about 1 centimetre, that's not massive, but look at the difference in the depth. That is incredible. That's got to be 1.5 inch difference between these two laptops. Now once it's on your desk and you're using it, you're not going to notice the difference in size, but where you will notice it is trying to fit one of these in a bag. Now this Razer Blade 18, I've managed to get into 17-inch laptop bags, it's that compact, whereas the Alienware M18 is a struggle to get a bag for it. Now you can get the Alienware Travel backpack in an 18-inch version for this laptop, and I would recommend if you really want to go that route, with this Alienware M18, get that bag as well. And even then, it's a little bit tight. This is one huge laptop. And not only is it bigger in the size department, when we're talking of the weight, there is a kilogram difference between these two. The actual Blade 18 comes in at just over 3 kilograms, whereas the Alienware M18 comes in just over 4 kilograms. And that is a big difference when you're carrying these around. When you're carrying the Blade around, it's very easy to pick up and use one-handed. This is just like the weight of a normal 7-inch laptop from last year. And this Alienware M18, the Big Daddy, this is one heavy laptop. You can pick it up with one hand, but it's not comfortable. You're going to feel that. And you will feel this if it's in your bag for a significant amount of time and you're walking a reasonable distance. But if all you're doing is picking up your laptop, transporting it from desk to desk, and then opening it up, that may not be that important. So that's something that you need to consider when you're buying this laptop. So now I want to quickly touch upon build quality. I have to say that both of these are built like absolute tanks. The win to me personally would have to go to the build quality of the Razer Blade 18. This is out of a milled aluminium chassis, and it is that not only is the build quality fantastic, but the fit and finish on this machine is truly next level. It feels like a MacBook for Windows. It's absolutely incredible. Now the Alienware M18, the build quality is still great. There's no flex, there's no creak. Even this is a heavy laptop when you pick it up. And it does feel great in the hand. It's all metals, but it isn't a milled laptop like the Blade 18. You can get a bit more flex, like when you're pushing down on the lid. But either way, I think both of these are built like tanks and they are built to last. Now before we open them up and look inside, I want to quickly talk about ports and RGB. Now I've got the Mercury version of the Razer Blade 18, and this is very muted when we talk about RGB. There's only RGB on the keyboard, and we've got a status LED on the front. There's no lit Razer head logo. You do get that on the black version, and I think this makes it great if you want a subdued looking gaming laptop that's almost at place at work environment. Now the actual Alienware M18, when we're talking of the RGB, we've got the lit Alienware head on the lids. We've also got the Tron ring around the back of the laptop, as well as the RGB keyboards and the Alienware power button that all lights up. So if RGB is your thing, the Alienware M18 is better in that regards. And when we're talking about the ports on these laptops, both of these are, I would say, desktop replacements with a good selection of ports that will see you through your day-to-day use. Now the Razer Blade 18 has all of the ports on either side, and I do personally prefer that because I'm always plugging things in and out of my laptop. But I will say, if you're plugging a lot of peripherals in and out, it looks messier on the Blade 18. The Alienware M18, on the other hand, has a lot of the ports at the back and just a couple of the ports at the side. And although I think this is great for making the laptop tidier because a lot of your ports are hanging out the back of the laptop, the strangest decisions that Alienware have made with this machine is they put the RJ45 on the side, which should have gone on the back because that's a cable that you want sticking out the back of your laptop. And on the back of the laptop, they put the full-size SD card. Now, if you buy this for content creation, video editing, or whatever else that you want, do you want to really be sticking your SD card around and trying to poke it into that little hole at the back of your laptop? That's so inconvenient. So, although I like the fact it's tidier on the Alienware M18 in most parts with the ports at the back, I do think the engineers need to spend some time thinking, how do people actually use these laptops? And with regards to the actual number of ports themselves, the Alienware M18 does have a couple of extra ports that the actual Blade 18 does not. We get a mini display port, which can be very handy for monitors, although both these do have Thunderbolt 4. We get an extra USB-C on the M18. We just get 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports on the Blade 14, whereas the M18 we get 2 Thunderbolt 4 and a USB-C. And we also get 1 extra USB-A port. We get 4 on the M18 and 3 on the Blade 18. Both of these, in my opinion, are a good amount of ports and very usable in my use every day using these laptops. So now we've looked around the externals of the laptops, let's open them up and take a look. Okay, so we're into the actual laptops themselves, where you spend most of your time with your gaming machine. Now both of these have a per key RGB keyboard, but there's an easy win here for the Alienware M18. Now this keyboard is fantastic, whether you choose the standard keyboards or the full mechanical keyboard for this machine. Both of these have the most incredible typing experience of any laptop I've ever used. And easily, if typing is your absolute preference, this wins hands down. The Razer Blade 18, on the other hand, it is per key RGB and has better backlighting than the actual Alienware M18, but the keys feel quite dead. They don't have a lot of travel, and you have no choice in mechanical, it is what it is. Plus there's no number pad on such a large 18-inch gaming laptop. Whereas the Alienware M18, you'll notice you have a number pad to the right-hand side of the actual keyboard. Now, personally, I'm quite happy without the number pad because I prefer a centered keyboard. What you will notice is on the Alienware M18, because we've got that number pad, they've shoved over that touchpad slightly across to obviously sit underneath the spacebar, as you'd expect. I prefer the look of a fully centered touchpad and keyboard. Usability-wise, I would definitely say the win here goes to the keyboard on that Alienware M18. And as we move down to the touchpads, both of these have premium touchpads and they both work absolutely flawlessly. But if you look side by side, the difference in size between these touchpads is just truly phenomenal. Even though the Alienware M18 is a much bigger laptop, the touchpad is stupidly big on the Blade 18 to a point where I would say it's too big. And that's not something that you usually hear me say. And what this often leads to is when I'm using the gaming laptop for full-on gaming with the inbuilt keyboard, I have had a few taps on the palm rest whilst I'm using the keyboard, leading to some misfires in some FPS games. They definitely need to improve the palm rejection on this model. Personally, if they'd have made that touchpad similar size to the Alienware M18, you wouldn't have that issue and I wouldn't be complaining at all, because the touchpad does feel better and track better than the Alienware M18. Not by a lot, but it is a little bit of a better touchpad. It's just a bit too big in my opinion. So between the two for usability, I would have to prefer this Alienware M18. Another quick point to note, with the actual Razer Blade, it is milled aluminium, so the whole palm deck is aluminium and feels absolutely rock solid. I do really like it. Slightly sharp corners on the edge, as you'd expect with a milled machine like this, just like any MacBook or any other milled aluminium laptop out there. Whereas the Alienware M18, we've got the soft touch coating over the top of the laptop. And I do absolutely love this. It feels so luxurious when you're actually using the laptop. But I'm going to warn you, this does pick up fingerprints and oils and stains quite easily and can look quite grubby after a while. But from an actual everyday use perspective, I think I do prefer the feel of this than actual Razer Blade, although the Razer Blade will look better for longer if you buy the Mercury. The black one is also a fingerprint magnet. Now you may notice either side on the Blade 18 we've got these lovely big speaker grills. We don't see anything either side on the M18. Now the Alienware M18 has a couple of speakers in there, whereas the Razer Blade has 6 speakers. They sound like this. Speaker test of the Razer Blade 18 versus the Alienware M18. Starting with the Razer Blade, both set to 50% volume. Now the M18. Now 80%. M18. Wow, a massive difference there. The Razer Blade 18 sounds incredible. Full sounding, great volume, and really crystal clear. Whereas the Alienware M18 is sort of a bit muffled and tinny, and just didn't sound great at all. Speakers, Blade 18, clear win. And as we move up to the actual 18-inch panels in both of these laptops, I want to quickly point out that the Razer Blade 18 only has one choice of panel, and that is the 240Hz 2560 by 1600 500 nit panel. And it is a fantastic panel. I've been using this a lot. I love the color accuracy, I love how fast and fluid it feels, and I love that 500 nit brightness. Now on the Alienware M18 we get 2 choices of panels, at least in the UK. We get a 2560 by 1600 panel that's only just over 300 nits and it's only 165 Hz, or you can choose the 1200p 480Hz esports panel. Now it will be incredibly quick, 480Hz, 1200p, you can drive that with some really high frames per second. Would you really want a 1200p resolution on a massive 18-inch panel? I think you have to be a real die-hard esports player to even consider that option. Maybe some people do out there, but for most people I think the higher resolution 2560 by 1600 is the better option. Now if you're in an indoor environment, just over 300 nits is absolutely fine, you have no problem. But I have to be honest, I do often work into some bright rooms and bright environments. I absolutely love this 500 nits that you get on the Blade 18. It makes a massive difference. And this panel, I would say, in my opinion, is a little bit faster than the 165 Hz. It's just a little bit more fluid. So the panel is an easy win to the Blade 18, in my opinion. I just think it's such an amazing panel they've put in to this laptop, and I wish Dell offered a similar panel in the Alienware M18. And as we move above the actual screens themselves, we both have a 1080p webcam that look and sound like this. And that's the test of the webcam and the microphones on the Razer Blade 18 in Mercury. And this is the test of the webcam and the microphones on the Alienware M18. And both these laptops have Windows Hello facial recognition, so you can open the panel and they both log you in, both work flawlessly. Absolutely premium feature that I love on both of these machines. So moving on to the internals, and the good news is both these laptops are easy to get into, and to upgrade the RAM, SSD and Wi-Fi is easily possible. Both these laptops have 2 DDR5 RAM slots, and both of them also have 2 80mm M.2 SSD slots. But the Alienware M18 also has the advantage of an extra 2 30mm M.2 slots on the 4080 and the 4090 model, meaning that you can have up to 4 SSDs in the M18. Now for some reason, Alienware have decided to gimp this option on the 4060 and 4070, leaving those with just 2 SSDs. But with regards to the SSDs, the M18 takes the clear lead. Looking at the fans, we can see that the M18 has 2 large fans plus another 2 smaller fans to help dissipate the heat, whereas the Razer Blade has 2 main fans plus 1 smaller fan in the battery to do the same. But an area where the Blade 18 pulls ahead is the fact that it has a vapor chamber facing the user, unlike the vapor chamber in the M18, which is on the inverted motherboard. This means that should you need to repaste that Blade 18, it's a very easy task, unlike the M18, which means you need to strip the entire laptop down to get the motherboard out to repaste it. Now as mentioned, they both have a vapor chamber, but the M18 has the advantage of having the larger rear grills to pump the hot air out, as opposed to the Blade 18, which is pumping that hot air out through its hinge. So that leads us nicely into the performance section. Looking at the CPU first, although we have a slightly better CPU option on the Razer Blade 18, they both have the same cores and threads, and it is only a couple of megahertz higher on that Blade 18, so it shouldn't make a massive difference. And when looking at the benchmarks, the Blade handily pulls ahead in Geekbench 5, which is a very short single-core, multi-threaded and single-threaded test. When we move to the longer test, the Cinebench R23, which is a 10-minute torch test, the M18 pulls ahead because of its much higher long-term wattage. Razer are much more conservative in the power budgets they give to their laptops, and while it does mean you get a cooler running CPU, it's at the expense of some performance on that long-term boost. Moving over to the GPU performance, and both laptops have Advanced Optimus and G-Sync available to the laptop display. They also both have a 175 watt TGP on that 4080. So running synthetic benchmarks, the Blade 18 came slightly ahead, and it also did very well in its shadowed the Tomb Raider benchmark at its native 1600p. But in long-term gaming, the M18 does have the advantage, because Dell just let that CPU run free. The CPU is allowed to boost until it hits 100 degrees centigrade, which usually gives the system about 100 watt CPU budget as well as a 175 watt GPU budget. Now unfortunately the Blade 18 only gets about 65 watts to that CPU whilst you're gaming. Now this does mean a much cooler running CPU as it only sits about 80C, unlike the Alienware which can get up to 100. And talking of long-term gaming, I've put many hours into both these machines, and they are both amazing machines to game on, and the fan noise is very similar between the two. They both have quiet profiles at about 45 decibels, are balanced at 50 decibels, and they both max out at just over 55 decibels. And with regards to the external temperatures, no problems here either. With both of these machines, the palm rest and the keyboard stayed equally cool, which really surprised me as historically Razer Blades have always run hot on that palm rest and keyboard, and I cannot stand that. So enough of gaming, let's take a look at the battery life. And as expected, neither were particularly good. The Blade managed 4 hours and 5 minutes on our usual YouTube streaming over Wi-Fi at 200 nits of brightness, whereas the Blade 18 managed 4 hours 23, so although a win, it's nothing really to shout from the rooftops. The M18 comes with either a huge 330 watt brick or a 330 watt slim GAN charger, depending on the region that you're in, whereas all of the Razer Blade 18s come with a compact 330 watt GAN. But the Blade 18 also has the added benefit of 100 watt PD charging, meaning I can power the laptop from a power bank, a USB-C charger, or even my monitor, and it's actually very usable at that 100 watts. Now the Alienware M18 has no power delivery at all. Dell only allows the X series to have power delivery. Shame on you, Dell. So now that we've looked at the performance of these laptops, I want to talk about the software, because that is quite a big consideration between these two machines that also controls the performance. And I have to be honest, the Alienware Command Center has had a rewrite this year, but is still, in my opinion, an absolute abomination piece of software. Now I've tried and tried and tried to like this piece of software, I cannot stand it. So I would have to say, with an Alienware, set your profiles, set your colors, close the software and try and never use it again because it is really awful. The profiles are not great. I normally leave this in the quiet mode, which gives the best mix of performance and balance on a day-to-day use. The RGB profiles are not easy to set up, and I hate the way that the games can overwrite some of your other profiles. I personally think Dell need to go back to the drawing board with this command center and totally rewrite it from scratch and just think about how it's going to best operate for the user. Now the Razer Blade Synapse, it's not perfect. It is quite a bulky piece of software. There's a lot of people that moan about it, but in my use after the Alienware Command Center, I love this piece of software. It's easy to set up all my profiles. There's some great inbuilt profiles for the actual keyboards. I love the fact that I can customize the performance very, very easily. You've got balanced, silence, and custom. And within that custom, you can then choose the level of customization for the CPU and the GPU. That makes a big difference to how the laptop acts and sounds, and there's a big difference between the profiles. Now I do often leave it in balance mode because I love that mix of good performance and good fan noise, as opposed to maxing out the fans and performance, which in all honesty, I much prefer a quieter laptop. But everyone's different, you've got that full customization with this model. I also love how well the Razer Synapse fits in with any other Razer peripherals, because no doubt if you buy a Razer Blade, you're probably going to use a Razer mouse and headset and keyboard. They all fit in so well with this Razer Blade on Synapse, whereas unfortunately, having used some of the Alienware peripherals, they don't quite work as well in Command Center. So when we come to the software, in my opinion, it's an easy win for the Synapse on the Blade 18. As much as I love Alienware and I love Alienware products, they just cannot seem to do the Command Center software. They really need to go back and fix that. But when we look at warranty between these two laptops, now this is somewhere where Dell absolutely exceed my expectations. When you buy an Alienware, you get on-site warranty, which can be incredibly handy. If this laptop breaks, they will send an engineer out to your house or office and fix your laptop for you. No sending your laptop back for weeks and ends and faffing around waiting to get your laptop back. It is usually sorted in a few days. They also have some great people that you can talk to that help you along the process. And I've never had an issue when I have had to have an Alienware laptop fixed. Now the same cannot be said for the Razer Blade with its back-to-base warranty, which for us, it's such an expensive premium laptop, is just so wrong in my opinion. It comes with a 1-year back-to-base warranty. It means you have to send your laptop back, hope you get it back in a working condition, and it may take you a couple of weeks to do so. And you have to liaise with the customer service, which haven't been as on the ball or as good, in my opinion, as Dell. So if warranty is a big consideration, definitely consider the Alienwares. So that takes me through to the conclusion. And what can I say? These are both fantastic machines. Gaming on both these laptops is an absolute joy, but there is a massive gulf in the price between these two, £1,000 in the UK between these two models. So is that better screen, more compact chassis with better build quality on that Blade 18 worth £1,000? It does have better features such as the power delivery that work so much better with a Razer Blade. In fact, it doesn't even work on the Alienware M18. You have to have the Alienware X series to have power delivery working. Whereas with this, I can use a power bank or a monitor and keep that laptop going. Add to that the better speakers, the better screen, the better software that makes it easier to customize and adjust the CPU performance. Does make this the better laptop in my opinion, but I don't think it's £1,000 better laptop. I think if you're somebody that's going to pick up your laptop, put it on a desk and just play a game and enjoy it, the Alienware M18 makes more sense for most people. The user experience is fantastic with that amazing keyboard, the lovely luxurious touchpad. So for the extra £1,000 saving, you are getting, unfortunately, a slightly inferior screen and inferior speakers, but it's still a fantastic gaming laptop to use. It is quite heavy, it is bulky, it's harder to find a bag, but once you've got it sitting on your desk and you're actually using this luxurious palm rest with this amazing keyboard, I know the screen may not be 500 nits, but still probably bright enough in most indoor environments, and it's still a fast panel. This makes an excellent desktop replacement gaming laptop that is just so far cheaper than the Blade 18, and it also have a much better warranty as well, should anything ever go wrong in the future. So which would I pick from these two laptops? And that was a real hard choice. I have to be honest, if money wasn't an issue, I would pick the Blade 18. I love the compact form factor, I think it's an amazing laptop, but ultimately, you've got to pay for these, and these are really expensive. So I think most of the time, and for most people, I would take that actual Alienware M18. Well, that's my thoughts on these two laptops. As always, I'd love to know what you guys think. Put it in the comment section down below and let me know which you would pick and why. And as always, thank you for watching.